Cool. Well, all right. I wanted you guys, I was going through this myself and I was like, man, we should do this as a group. It's a beautiful way to all work together and grow smart together. So this is a blog that Cedric Dahl has done. So Cedric's been definitely one of my main mentors in this space, and I just learned so much like really high end knowledge from him. And so I've kind of broke down part of his blog into a webinar. I'll go through that a bit more, but what we'll be going over is the live to work ratio. So I don't want to take any of this as my content. Like I'm following one of his exercises that he's put out there in one of his blogs. But first, I actually wanted to start out with this. You guys have probably seen Prince Ia before. His videos of lots of them have gone viral, but this is just a really great one to start out with.
I read a study yesterday. It said that last year, more than half of us actually chose not to take our full vacations from our jobs. Question, don't you think it's crazy that so many of us go into work even when we don't need to be there? Times we could be on the beach, buried in sand, or traveling the earth. We spend it in the office, traveling from desk to desk, buried in paperwork. See, in this chaotic world, everything goes so fast. We're so busy, seems like everyone's middle name is multitask. But now before you go and act all holier than thou, how many extra tabs do you have open on your computer right now? See, we all need time to get away from the race for our family, friends, for the sake of our mental state. Time to rewind, recharge, and reconnect. Not reporting to the office on emails that should be on redirect. Because life, ladies and gentlemen, is all about moments. No one in history has ever been able to hold on to one. Not a single soul. And you never get them back. See? There one goes. No do-over, no rewind, no DVD root menu to skip to a previous scene. Ask yourself, how many trips did you almost take? How many sights have you almost seen? How many moments have you lost thinking about the next one? Thinking that once you get this or get there, maybe that will be the best one. Life has taught me that all we will ever have is now. But let me be perfectly clear. I'm not saying to quit your job, even though I know you deserve a 6-month vacation twice a year. But how about small steps, short trips, with long dances, no distractions? Spend time with family instead of coworkers, meditation instead of aggravation, replace our screensavers with sunrises, palm pilots with palm trees, jam copy machines with, and I really hate jam copy machines. The most precious thing we have in life are moments. Let's make the most of them before they disappear. Let's see the world while we still can and cherish those while they're still here. Because when our lives are almost over, it won't matter how much money we made or hours we worked or times we got employee of the month. What we will look back on are the memories we made, the hours we spent with those we loved, and were we father of the month, mother of the year, friend of a lifetime. Holidays should be a time where we go away and come together. From now on, let's take our whole vacation and be fully present, creating memories that will last forever.
That was beautiful, huh?
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So today's exercise is really about how do we live more and work less, really, at the end of the day. So these exercises will lead one into another. Now, let's see, let me go with this on share. So first, to develop where we want to go, we first have to start we have to get a good map of where we're at now. And I have a lot of work to do nonetheless. Maybe just like you guys, I've got a lot of different tabs up and I've got a lot of different things running in the background. But the big thing is I want to concentrate on what's really going to make the big difference. So what's going to allow me to spend more time with those that I love, allow me to research and grow more knowledge about things that I'm very passionate about. And so overall, if we get our live to work ratio in a really good balance, we can grow, we can learn, we can make more moments. So the very rich among us actually know that the thing that's the most valuable to them is not all their money, it's not their possessions, it is their time. So that's why at the very root of these exercises, that's why this one's very important to start with. So let's just break it down. So it's the total days or years versus the days or years that you actually worked. So let's just say that you worked 300 days last year and you were able to live 65 of those days. Something to maybe work towards is where you work 150 days and you live 215 days of the year. That'd be amazing. Or you can work, a couple of years and take 4 years off. That would be the ideal. But we want to start small and build our ratio up and get closer to 1-to-1, to where we work 1 year, we take 1 year off. And, I kind of stumbled upon this years ago when I was a backpacker, and like I had almost no expenses. So I lived out of a backpack. The only thing I paid for, the only bill I had every month was just to pay for my cell phone, really, and, hostels and stuff traveling around the world. And when I was in Australia, I was able to work for 6 months, and I was able to travel for a couple of years on the amount of money that I made during the mining boom, nonetheless. But if you can increase the amount that you make and save, and you can travel for a long time, you can make a lot of beautiful memories made. So now let's go over how to actually calculate it. So at the end of the day, I think you've seen this, Raj. We did this in the workshop, the boot camp at the beginning of Taurus Institute. But so the income, it's your income after taxes, because a lot of people will say, "Oh, I make 50 grand a year, I make 100 grand a year," but you don't take that home. So there's no reason to actually count what taxes take off the top. So we just wanted to say what your take home income is minus your debt. And then what you want to do is you actually want to divide that by what your living expenses are. Oh, it's actually missing one part. So it's income after taxes minus, I'll have to redo that one. But here's an example. So income after taxes, let's say you make $50,000 a year. And then you want to minus your living expenses, which is, let's say it's 40 grand a year. And let's say you have zero debt. This is one of the most ideal examples I've got here. So you divide that by what your living expenses are, which is 40,000 a year. So you end up with 10,000 left over at the top, divided by 40 equals 0.25. So really what that equates to is, for every 365 days you work, you can actually take 91.25 days off, or 3 months, to actually live your life. So here's a pretty average example, and it can get a lot worse with some people's circumstances. So their income is 50,000, their living expenses is 40,000, but they've got 20,000 in debt. So and your living expenses stay the same. So then you end up with negative 10,000 divided by 40,000 equals negative 0.25 days. So for every year that you work, you're actually going backwards. You're going into the hole. And for a lot of people that are in the rat race, they're thinking, "Oh, but I got 5 weeks of holiday a year, but they're actually going backwards. They're not actually going forwards and increasing their live to work ratio. So you end up with negative 25. So then you're ended up with negative 3 months a year to live, just by how much debt you really have. Now, this is the average American example, which is pretty crazy. So the average American income is $47,000. Their living expenses are 50, which, if that makes any sense, it's negative $3,000 a year. So they're going in debt just to survive $3,000 every year. So their live to work ratio is actually a 0.6, so 0.6. So that equals every full year they work, they're actually going in the whole 22 days to actually live their life. So how do we improve our live to work ratio? So we only have two options, and one is to spend less or make more. So this is the average of what this, most of all, this is Americans, and this goes back to 2008 as well. So it may have changed a little bit, but we can see that the majority of what people spend their money on is housing. So one of the things that Cedric did was he was a bachelor, so he completely downsized from a really nice bachelor pad to living in a shared house, and so he was able to save, increasing his live to work ratio substantially. There's education, there's food and beverage, transportation, healthcare, and apparel. And something that I learned this week that's really shocking from Real Vision was that the CPI number, they talk about, inflation and stuff. Well, they don't actually take into account, what is it, services and food for inflation, which is like, I think it's services, housing, and food, which is like some of the biggest things that we use. So they say inflation's 2%, but it's easily more like 6% with the things that we spend the majority of our money on. This is another graphic that just kind of shows the percentage from a different source of what people spend their money on. So we can see that overall, where you live, your home, your shelter, your housing, and food are some of the areas which have the most opportunity for growth. So even Susan and I wasn't by choice, but we've gone down to one car. So so instead of having two cars, instead of paying insurance on two cars, instead of paying for fuel for two cars, we've actually gone down to one, which is actually going to increase our live to work ratio. Now, the same thing you can do with food. What you can do is, instead of meeting friends out to eat dinner, you guys can host a potluck. So everyone makes a little bit of food and brings their own drinks, and it's actually a lot cheaper on everyone. And sometimes you actually end up finding that you can relax more than if you're in a restaurant, if you're at home. Another idea too is, instead of going out to dinner where everyone has a $25 plate, you guys can all share one or two pizzas and save quite a bit of money as well. This is another one that goes from 1984 to 2008, what people have spent the majority of their money on. We can see the housing has actually increased. Oops, food. Oh man. Go back to that slide. So we can see that a lot of things have stayed the same, but there's a few things that have increased, like housing. Transportation's actually gone down. But that's so first we need to calculate our live to work. So let's say right now your live to work is four months to live for every 1 year that you work, which is actually a really good live to work ratio. It's a good place to start, but we want to actually increase that. So overall, we want to look at this as if it's an actual game to play, something to win. So with some of the things that Cedric went on in his blog, he increased his live to work from from working 1 year to having 4 months off, to actually going 1 year to 2.6 years off. Now, this is by drastically reducing his spending, but then also increasing the amount of money that he has coming in. And then on top of that, you can, if you can get your live to work ratio where you work 1 year and you could take 16 years off, well, you're going to have one of the best lifestyles around. So if you want to live more and work less, first step one is just to find your live to work ratio. So we have to figure out where we're at now, so that we can improve it, so that we can get to where we want to go. Step two is to try and spend less and see what impact it has. And then these are actually Cedric's steps, but overall, we actually want to see how we can start to increase our amount of income as well. So he also, now these are Cedric's, so explore different ways of making more. So here are some of my favorite inspirational books, which is The 4-Hour Work Week, 100 Great Businesses, and Richard Branson's autobiography. So that's Losing My Virginity, which is an amazing read, very inspirational. It goes a lot into his adventures, but also some of his major business crises as well. So your homework really is to start out by calculating your own live to work ratio and see where you can spend less, see where you can also make more. With crypto, with investing and stuff, there's, if we can just start getting 10 to 15% gains constantly over and over again on some of our trades, we can increase how much we get in. And then there's a movie that Cedric put in his blog, which is called The Story of Stuff. This is about consumption, which is a very eye-opening YouTube video. And there's a couple of links. So the first link, I'll send this to you guys in the WhatsApp group, but it's the Living More Project. So that's Cedric's blog. But then there's also, I'll put in the YouTube, which is the consumption YouTube that I was just talking about. But yeah, do you guys have any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
Sure.
Go, Dean. You go first.
Well, the way that my life works is that I have stuff to do every day, but I don't know that I spend every day working all day.
Yeah.
But what I don't get is big breaks in time where I can go away and have a holiday for weeks or on end, which I've been in that position a few years ago when we were going a lot better, and we did have good holidays based on that. But it's been a grind for the last couple of years trying to work out how to keep things going and also get the income back up to a level which covers our debts.
Sure. One of the next exercises that we're going to go over is going to work on what we should do to increase. So what you're talking about is you have a different working lifestyle, which is really good. A lot of people wish they could have that, but nonetheless, you actually want to have more time off. Now, one of the next exercises we're going to be doing is going to be going over where we take a lot of different ideas, and then we actually we'll chart them and see which one's the best fit for where we want to go. So that'll be probably next week.
Okay, no, that sounds interesting. Yeah.
What do you
Raj?
have, Raj?
Yeah, hey, buddy. So one of the questions I had was when you said with the formula, income after taxes minus living expenses minus debt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you talk about debt, I mean, what I'm confused about is, say, if you've got investment properties which are in debt, but how would you, like you're getting rental income out of it, so you could be either neutral cash flow or you could be positive cash flow or negative cash flow. So how would you account that into the formula of debt?
The easiest way you could do it is, let's say you have a negatively geared house, and let's say you're losing $3,000 a year. So if it's 20K, so then you can add the 20K onto your living expenses.
Gotcha.
So if that's what you have to fork out every year, then add that to your living expenses. And that's also where this exercise is gonna show you where you want to target your efforts. So we don't want to be divided. Like for some people, what they might want to do is they might want to work on their debt. So if they've got 100 grand in debt, they're going to want to keep chipping away at that debt. And with this example, so when I was in Alaska, at one point I was working like 3 jobs. I was just flat out, and this was trying to go to being to having quite a bit of debt when I was in my early 20s to being debt free at 23. Now, I worked through something very similar, but a long time ago now, and I've stayed out of debt besides my house ever since, and which is an amazing thing. But to get out of debt, you want to start snowballing that. Now, with investments and stuff, that's where you're going to have to subjectively look at each and every investment and say, you know what, when the time's right, I might want to get out of this investment because it's really killing my live to work ratio. It's not really adding much to my life. It's, you know, there might be some capital gain to it maybe at one day, but maybe it's, you know, even if you just got out and broke even at some point, if that's an option, that might be something you want to look into as well. So it's going to be,
I guess my question basically has got to do with, say, with the formula itself. Say I've got $1 million of debt with investment properties, right? And I know that, say, my expenses out of the property, out of my pocket would be 20,000. So I know you're saying added to the 20,000 to the living expenses, for example, but do you still put the debt of $1 million into the debt formula, or you don't?
So when it comes to an investment like that, I probably wouldn't. So the big thing about the big thing about debt is if you personally hold $1 million in debt, not counting property. So when you have a property, it's pretty much just its own small business. So that small business is generating an income or it might be generating a little bit of a loss, but what you're doing is you're working on equity into something that's going to have a capital gain at some point down the track. So that's almost like a side hustle. So I wouldn't add that in. Now for your own personal house, I would. Your own personal house, I would put it in here, because the thing is, and that debt is accruing interest every day, and even at record low interest rates, it's still a lot of money every year. So like for an example, if you could get into somewhere here where your debt, where you own your house completely outright, imagine how little you'll have to work to be able to live, to be able to take 3 months, 6 months off. Just imagine what the freedom is going to bring you if you can get your live to work ratio. Just imagine if for every 1 year you have, you take 16 years off. So, 99% of people out there don't ever do exercises like this. They just say, "Oh yeah, I've got a good job," and they don't subjectively look at their spending as well. They might spend, I've got friends in America that go to Starbucks every single day of the year. I've got friends that eat out every single day of the year, and they don't invest at all. They're almost going to be stuck in that same hamster wheel. My goal, and my goal for a lot of other people, is to get out of that rat race, get out of that hamster wheel of just spinning and living more, because the more amount of time that we can spend with loved ones is the most precious thing we're going to have moving forward. So, and with investing, with learning how to trade properly, with increasing the wealth that we already have, that is going to be one of the ways that we can improve this big time. Even as a side hustle, we have our regular day-to-day job, but then you get your side hustle of cryptocurrency trading or stocks trading, or there's lots of different things you can do. But I just, even trading, I think one of the realizations I've had over the last couple of months is that you have to really look at what you're going to be putting your time into, which is future proofed, because all of technology is moving so quickly. We've had people that have come to help clean our house, clean our Airbnb and stuff, and they're registered nurses and they cannot find work, which I find pretty crazy. The Ubers that I've taken rides with, they have a joke that they're all engineers, and they're all working for Uber. So these are people that are highly educated, and they still can't find a regular, a really good paying job. And so moving forward, we want to make sure that what we're spending a lot of time on is going to be future proof. And there's always going to be an arbitrage. There's always, especially with humans the way we are, people are going to overprice things at the top, and people are going to be very fearful at the bottom and selling when it's going to be one of the best bargains around. So I don't ever see that going anywhere. So the education that we keep growing and learning with, I just think is going to pay more and more dividends moving forward.
Yeah, sure.
Makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, guys. Well, I hope you guys really like it. Thanks for joining. I've got several people that wanted to join, but we'll have to watch the recording. But yeah, so it's up to you guys. I'm going to be working through this week, and we don't have to show each other our numbers and stuff, but we can just kind of work through what our ratios are. So at the end of the day, the homework is to really come up with, okay, well, my ratio is 0.25, and I'm going to try and increase the number of days that I have from 91 up to 130. Now, it's kind of like compounding interest as well. Is the more amount of money that you can get saved, the more amount of money that goes into investing and stuff will just compound this as well. So if you have that will just increase the amount of money that you have coming in after taxes. So, if you don't take those 91 days off for a couple of years, you can actually just accrue them up because your bank account's growing. If you end up making $60,000 the next year, but your living expenses stay the same, then you can just see this number keep going up and up and up. What we find a lot of people do is, doesn't matter if they're making 50 grand, doesn't matter if they're making 100 grand, doesn't matter if they're making 250 grand. They usually end up spending well and truly over 80% of what they make. They'll buy a bigger house, they'll buy nicer things, and they almost always live within their means or right at the cusp of it. There's some people on one end of the spectrum that will spend more than what they make, and then there's other people that'll spend a lot less. We want to be the ones that spend a lot less, so that we can actually spend the things that we really want to do with our time. Not have the fancy house, not have the really expensive clothes or furniture, but spend more time with the people that we love the most. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I'll share these slides and the links, and it'd be awesome to know what you guys come up with your own work to live ratio.
So are we just discussing that on the next session, or are we meant to just?
Sure. I'm just going to kind of take this fluidly. If whatever we want to do, if we want to maybe catch.
No, I'm kind of saying, like, do we have to just put it in the WhatsApp group, or do we just share it before we start the next session next week?
Yeah,
we can just
maybe
have a 15-minute chat or something.
Yeah, this is all just an experiment, so I really want you guys to be my guinea pigs. I want to make this add this to a really good course that I'll keep building over time. But maybe if we're all available Sunday evening, maybe. So the nice thing is to keep ourselves accountable. So if we all work through it and have everything ready by Sunday evening, then we could actually go through it. And then next Tuesday, we'll work through what the next exercise is.
Sure.
How does that sound?
Yeah, I'll do my best. I'm going away to Geraldton again tomorrow for a few days. And
yeah, and at the end of the day, a lot of this, it's really hard to say, okay, last year I spent $60,000. Just take averages, and the big expenses that you use, your rent, your mortgage, your food and stuff, that's pretty, pretty easy to calculate per month. And if you calculate 1 month times it times 12, and then you can come up with what your living expenses around what they are.
Hey guys, I've got, I don't know if you guys want, I can send you my budget sheet that I have. I made it a long time ago. And all you need to do is just roughly plug in your numbers. It's like monthly or weekly, whatever. But mainly if you use monthly, and it's got everything like entertainment, it's got your insurances, it's got
Cool, yeah.
health insurance, everything. I can share that in the group. I'll just zero everything on my end. And then
Sure.
actually what I'll do is, did you want me to show it right now?
Well, just zero it out and share it, and because
Okay, I'll zero it out and share it with you guys. And if you want to use it, you can use it.
Yeah, perfect. Cool.
Okay.
Awesome,
Yeah.
guys. You
Okay,
guys
buddy.
have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you guys on Sunday night then.
No worries, Nick. Talk to you soon.
Later.
Okay, guys. Bye.
There you go.
Bye. Bye.
Cheers.